what's happening in the box is a miracle of health. And it looks like this, that the affiliates are an oasis from chronic disease. Their actions in terms of what they build in their community and culture and what comes out the back door is an unprecedentedly elegant solution to the world's most vexing problem. So I'm super proud of what they're doing. And what we're doing is working to change the world's perception inside and outside of the box of that underlying reality. Because it's true. They're healing where no one else can. The affiliates are.
This is episode number 35 with Coach Greg Glassman. Welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm Julie Fouché, medical student and former CrossFit Games athlete. Here, I bring to you information and inspiration from experts and everyday individuals for how to use lifestyle to maximize health. Thank you so much for joining me. Now let's get started with this week's episode. Welcome back to Pursuing Health. I recently had the amazing opportunity to sit down with founder and CEO of CrossFit, Coach Greg Glassman, and I cannot wait to share with you everything he had to say. But first, a little bit of background about Greg. He grew up in Southern California, where his father was a mathematician and taught him about the scientific method from a very early age, having a big influence on him. He also trained as a gymnast, and he supplemented his training with other modalities, including weightlifting and cycling. He began his career as a trainer, coaching gymnastics in 1974, and over the following years, he would redefine fitness with the CrossFit methodology. He was kicked out of several Globo gyms before finally opening the first CrossFit gym in Santa Cruz, California in 1995. And shortly after that, CrossFit.com was born, where he would post workouts of the day, or WODs as we all know them now. And athletes from around the world would complete these workouts and post their scores to compete with each other online. Beginning in 2003, CrossFit affiliate gyms began to open, and since then, CrossFit has experienced exponential growth, currently with more than 12,000 affiliates worldwide. During this period, we have also witnessed the growth of the CrossFit Games, the ultimate proving grounds for fitness, which identifies the fittest man and woman on earth each year from a pool of hundreds of thousands of athletes across the globe. We've also witnessed the incredible stories of transformation in the affiliates, with participants losing weight, gaining confidence, and ridding themselves of chronic disease. I've shared some of these stories on previous episodes in the podcast, and they're often some of my favorites to share with you. I recently had the opportunity to sit down with Coach Greg Glassman to discuss everything from his early days as a trainer to the role that CrossFit and the affiliates play in health and chronic disease, to his new model, the 5 buckets of death, and some of his ideas for creating a doc in the box. This is absolutely my favorite episode to date, and I cannot wait to share it with all of you. Before we get started, I have a few quick reminders. First, if you're enjoying the podcast, please head over to iTunes to subscribe and consider giving it a 5-star rating. You can also head to my website, juliefouché.com, where you can enter your email to stay in the loop with the podcast and everything else I'm doing with my bi-weekly newsletter. I'm also always looking for inspiring stories to share. So if you or someone you know has used lifestyle to overcome a serious health challenge, please send your story to me at info@juliefouché.com, and I'll select some to share here on future episodes. If you're interested in training with me, check out my program through Beyond the Whiteboard. This is the actual training that I do now, 5 days per week, 1 hour per day, scheduled out for you minute by minute from warm up to cool down. We also have a Train on the Go program that's perfect for helping you get your workouts in on vacation or during a busy week at home. For more information or try out the programs yourself, visit beyondthewhiteboard.com/JulieFouché. Also, please remember that although I'm nearing graduation from medical school, this podcast is meant to share experiences of individuals and does not provide medical advice. So, with that, let's get started here with episode number 35 of Pursuing Health, featuring CrossFit's founder and CEO, Coach Greg Glassman. So, welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm so excited. This is a very, very special episode. I cannot believe I'm here with Coach Greg Glassman. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Julie. It feels right to be here. And welcome to my home.
Thank you.
Welcome to Santa Cruz.
Thank you. Well, I know there's a lot of things that I want to touch on during this podcast. But I thought maybe we could just start out with a little bit of background for people listening about your athletic background growing up and how you got into training first off.
I was a kid, grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and grew up to a aerospace family and scientific rigor. And all of that coincided with a gymnastics boom that exploded out of LA in the 1930s and sent more than 100 kids to the Olympics, and produced some amazing gymnastics, some of the best that this country ever produced. And the neighborhood I lived in was an epicenter for that.
Okay.
And it was probably natural that I'd want to try to combine some of the scientific rigor that had been drilled into me with what was my favorite thing. That's PE, right? Getting outside.
Of course.
Yeah.
So at what point did you start getting into the business of training and coaching?
Well, it was an easy way to make a living early. I coached gymnastics in high school in the summer.
Okay.
And worked with kids and adults both, and went from there to the Gold's Gym scene of the 70s, where there was anyone that had any kind of athletic background at all could get a job and do pretty well training, better than you could as a gymnastics coach at the YMCA or the YWCA or in a private studio.
Okay. And what do you think it was that drove you to start changing the game or to start looking at this differently and not following the same status quo that everyone had been doing?
Well, I mean, I stepped out of a world where you would, as a gymnast, develop a series of tricks that you wanted to incorporate into a routine early in the season. And then as the season approached, you'd have to bring those together into a single exercise that may take 2 minutes or more. And the difference metabolically, in terms of everything was different about doing something once and doing 10 somethings together and calling it a routine and not showing undue exhaustion or physically appear to be adversely affected, because you could take a deduction for panting or collapsing on your back and making a sweat angel. That was never okay. And so you step into the commercial scene, and what do you have? A sea of equipment, and just tons of gear, and on a certain level maybe that makes sense, because I came from a world where there were a ton of movements, hundreds of movements, so maybe you needed hundreds of machines. But no, it didn't hold up. Why would it be that doing something like 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, and 15 squats iteratively for 20 minutes, why is that cardiorespiratory stimulus not cardio, but sitting on a bike and doing something for 20 minutes? What makes that magically cardio? I knew power lifters that would deadlift, bench press, and squat. They could put the pin at the bottom in any machine and work it with one arm the whole stack, or one leg the whole stack, and then brag, all I do is these 3 lifts. There was something wrong in the bodybuilding offering, and there was something that wasn't quite right in the long, slow distance community. And I think every athlete knew that traditional training, that is not the training that was reserved in the in the strength and conditioning environment necessarily for the collegiate athlete or for the professional athlete, but what the public was being offered was a fusion of the long, slow distance variety and the bodybuilding. And I think everyone knew that there was something desperately wrong.
Well, maybe they knew it, but they didn't know what it was until you came along. And I know along that time you got kicked out of gym after gym. You finally went to your own. What was that like, having your own gym and training your clients?
Instantly wonderful. Yeah, amazing. before the first client really, stepped in, we knew that this was awesome. It was going to be impossible to get kicked out, which turned out to be, for the most part, true. Yeah, for the most part, true.
That's good. And at that point, when you had your gym, you were training people, you were thriving, you were getting people really fit. Before, it really went beyond that. What did you see? If you looked into the future, what did you see, or what did you think that your purpose in life was at that time?
I thought it was wonderful and beautiful to be able to put fitness, define it in terms that were workable, amenable to accurate and precise estimation. The constantly varied high intensity functional movement component was wonderfully formative. There was it continues to be an enormous amount of joy in basically putting everyday fitness on a kinematic foundation, so that force, distance, and time are ultimately what carries the day and determines what's going on. And the repercussions of that and that revolution continue to impact us today. And so a lot of it's more of the same, even into this very moment. When we put fitness on this kinematic basis, it allowed us instantly to give ranking to people in a particular workout. So it was clear that was first place, second place, third, fourth, and so that made things like the games wonderfully possible,
right.
Which is a very different thing than maybe what the long, slow distance community or the bodybuilding communities is. It was a little more dynamic, more exciting, more interesting than measuring biceps,
right.
say, and than having a bodybuilding contest. The second thing that it does is it allows us to make to measure small improvement. So tiny increments, changes. We revisit a workout, and if your weight hasn't changed appreciably, and you're doing the same exercises at the same load, the kinematics will be altered and reflected by the time difference.
Right.
And that time difference gives us accurate and precise estimation as changes in your work capacity, as far as that workout is concerned. And over time in other workouts, what that does is allows us in with accuracy and precision to measure advances in your fitness. And as we've measured it, as work capacity measured across broad time and modal domains, we now can start to do what has been tantamount to developing a technology of human performance, where we can measure and take note of improvement.
And I think I did my level 1 in the fall of 2010, and I think that first lecture about what is CrossFit and then what is fitness dramatically changed my life. Just being able to finally feel like I understood what fitness and what health really were. At what point did you realize that what you had created was more than just helping people have better performance, but it was on a bigger scale about their health?
When I wrote What is Fitness in 2002, I'd observed that there was a continuum of values from sickness to wellness to fitness, that anything fundamentally that we could metric would sit well ordered, where there was some well or normal value that sat in between some value that was clearly pathological, or some value that was typical of those that we would, by whatever definition, say are very fit people. And we knew too that the kinematic foundation we had put fitness on, that if we can measure your work capacity across broad time and modal domains and see improvements in your capacity, and so we'd lift that curtain and see that there's an improvement in your work capacity, what happens simultaneously is that a handful of what are really key metrics medically shift simultaneously. And those would include HDL, triglyceride, A1C, blood pressure, the elements of body count, bone density, muscle mass, and body fat. Those 7 would move harmoniously and all at once in the right direction. And so it was clear that there was a correlation between increased work capacity and improved metabolics. And when you look to the ease with which you could, and again, we chose a diet and an exercise regimen that would increase work capacity. And so the diet that would optimize your pull-ups is one that would do what? Allow you to burn body fat, and if you had too much, to get rid of that would certainly make it easier to get pull-ups. And then increase your muscle mass, make you stronger and allow you to do more pull-ups. And so with an integrated nutritional and workout concept, and that would be our, you know it by heart, the meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar, combined with work capacity, constantly varied high intensity functional movement, that in turn drove the work capacity, improved the fitness, and incidentally moved variables from values that were, if they were pathological, to well, or towards that direction at least, and from well to fit. And we've even seen, even in this most recent games, people that started their CrossFit Odyssey from values that we would clearly, and we call those things collectively kind of your metabolic health, those 7 elements, that those in, where that sits currently would be a measure of your metabolic health, and that is directly proportionate to your work capacity. And so the question was, does maximizing your work capacity maximize your metabolic health? And I'm of the view that in the most practical sense that's clearly the truth. And so that what we have in the games athletes is that chunk of the population globally that is farthest removed from chronic disease. And I mentioned chronic disease because those 7 pieces that we saw in 2002 move harmoniously in the right direction from values that were pathological to the direction of well, and from well to the direction of fit, that those things generally moved under that, constantly varied high intensity functional movement in the meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar, that we come to learn over time that the stimulus that is the meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, and the exercise itself, that those things are that's the dog.
Oh boy.
Are the independent variables that are driving those markers of metabolic health as truly as dependent variables. And what we currently know about chronic disease suggests that it's fundamentally a deficiency syndrome, where the lack of exercise and a diet that's truthfully looks no less, has an effect no less than to be one of, you could call it classical malnutrition, that deficiency syndrome is the root cause, is it the etiology of all that is wrong. And so that when we increase your work capacity through the stimulus that we currently have ascribed to, we may be optimally addressing the root cause of a lot of chronic disease. And that's something that's keeping a lot of us up at night.
Yes, that's very profound. So knowing this, what role does CrossFit and do the affiliates play in creating health?
An unprecedented role. And what's happening at HQ, what we're doing in media, doing in talking to friends, is letting the world know that what's happening in the box is more than all the beautiful people coming out, more than the friendships, more than the fitness. it's more than, and there are a lot of other profound things going on. The functional aesthetic that really has, you know, we look at our champions and we say they're beautiful. That beauty is tied to an aesthetic that is so liberating. It's not arbitrary. It's tied to work capacity. It's tied to something that we know. I'm already making the claim is tied to those essential health markers.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to jump back to it. I wanted to say before in talking about those 7 pieces about A1C, HDL, triglyceride and blood pressure, and then body fat, bone density, and muscle mass. Those things are each either defining manifestation of chronic disease or a chronic condition, or are high probability predictors of chronic disease, or themselves causal elements of additional disease like hypertension, or all 3 like hypertension. And to say that you have what you would call in the engineering sense kind of a high order or universal control over them, like here you are in a refinery and out comes, hypertension. To say that you know what knobs to turn to shut that off and not fuck up the rest of the system is profound. And we've known that for a long time. What's happened and it's been part of the curriculum since, it was those that read What is Fitness saw it there, that we knew that we had some kind of, in fact, it questioned us to ask, how do fitness and health differ? Are they not the same thing if they vary by degree? That you can take values and scooch them over here, and I've got, that's something that's only found in people that are very fit, and you move them over here, and that's something that's clearly pathological, and something in between is wellness. Like, well, are fitness and health related, and what is that relationship? That's been a big part of the CrossFit story, is trying to plumb that relationship. And I feel currently we have a pretty good handle on that. It's I like the message we're giving. And it's ready for export. But what's happening in the box is a miracle of health. And it looks like this, that the affiliates are an oasis from chronic disease, that whether they beat their chests and are hyper aware of it, as am I, or not, their actions in terms of what they build in their community and culture and what comes out the back door is an unprecedentedly elegant, and I mean that in the sense of being effective and efficient, but an unprecedentedly elegant solution to the world's most vexing problem. So I'm super proud of what they're doing, and what we're doing is working to change the world's perception inside and outside of the box of that underlying reality. Because it's true. They're healing where no one else can. The affiliates are. They're healing where no one else can.
They are. We see it every day. And it is to be in learning medicine at this time in a conventional healthcare system, and sometimes to see that you're seeing much more success when you go into your affiliate to work out than often you're seeing in the office. And it's very eye-opening to see that contrast. Yeah. What do you think, if you could design our healthcare system is obviously broken. If you could design the perfect healthcare system, what would it look like? In terms of creating health, not in terms of curing disease.
I put it up here today, thinking about you coming, and I said that opportunities for medical science to positively impact public health will arise only after the non-medical nature of chronic disease is fully appreciated and acted upon effectively. And what I mean by the non-medical nature of chronic disease is that it's a deficiency syndrome of, let's just for argument's sake call it a natural diet. And you and I share a bunch of opinions on that without even talking. We know that a diet full of sugar isn't a natural diet, right? That the deficiency and its correction are lifestyle issues, and they do present an acute medical condition eventually, but it's kind of like scurvy in that at the point that you're eating oranges, they're no longer medicine.
Right.
And the guy that's growing the oranges isn't running a hospital, nor is he a pharmaceutical corporation.
Right.
And so there's a very simple message about so much of your fate. In fact, we have this. I got my 5 buckets of death here. That you got chronic disease, and then there's and we've played this game with some very astute, professional medical audiences, where you just throw causes of death at me, and it's either going to fall in the chronic bucket or toxic, and that should actually be poison and not toxin. But I liked all the icks. Kinetic, genetic, or microbic. And you look at death, 75% of it's chronic. And if I look at where the money goes, you can play 5 buckets of where's the money gone. It's 86% of it's going to chronic, and the 14%'s ended up in those 4 buckets. And suffering, I don't know quite how to metric that, but there are other things that different ways you could look at the problem. But no matter how you parse the thing, that chronic disease, that tremendous amount of expense and suffering and death, has its root cause. Again, I think it's a deficiency syndrome that I think CrossFit currently has got to perhaps maybe even optimally a remarkably elegant solution. So you look at the rest and what do you need there? Well, I don't want to be poisoned. I don't want to be cut in half. I don't want to get bad genes, and I'm worried about bacteria, virus, prions, and black mold. I mean, you can wear a mask and curse your parents and stare out the window waiting for that meteor to come through and think you're going to duck, or become super concerned about everything you consume and fear of poisons. When you look at that and you're honest with it, listen, you poison me or cut off my arm, or if I've got some cursed genetic issue or an infection, I'm running to you. I want your help.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
What would really help, though, in terms of prior, what I may have done rather than worry, would probably have been fit. And then so it leaks over there. But largely what I need, Doc, is I need luck. I need to have good parents, dodge the virus that the guy next to me caught, with some notable exceptions. But the dividing line here starts to look like things you can do something about and things you can't.
Yes.
And so what I'm saying is that the opportunities for medical science to positively impact public health will arise only after the non-medical nature of chronic disease. That is, we got to shrink some of this. That will give you resource. It'll also give you more people suffering from those things.
Right. They'll be living longer.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. There's going to be other opportunities to get cut in half.
And I wonder too, if like you talk about the buffer, if you have all these people living over here in fitness, when those things happen, maybe those things won't happen as often, or maybe they will. They'll be easier to treat.
Let me give you some examples where you're going to get an outright just pass. There are genes that you can acquire that will not manifest absent some overt participation on your part. One of my favorite of those would be for alcoholism. Don't drink. I don't care if you have the gene or not. It won't, the issues. The thing isn't going to fully manifest.
Right.
The survival to kinetic insult, to physical insult. The surviving of infection. I mean, that's for a fact that you want to start with someone healthy if that's going to happen, right? The chances of survival are much greater. So that's probably where you can play the greatest role there. And in terms of this idea of I'm gonna get some rare disease and go to the expert on that and everything's gonna be okay, I think that, and I've got a family full of physicians. I love medicine. It's one of those things I thought would just be the greatest thing to be, and I have the utmost admiration for all docs. But what you really need when something's wrong with you is to not get misdiagnosed and mistreated. That would that would be the more wonderful thing than finding that person that has the miracle cure, because ultimately at the end of the day the standard of practice is the standard of practice, and what you'd hope to find is that, and so when it comes to it, like fitness and luck will be the major determinants of your health in terms of that stuff you can do something about.
Wow.
Excuse me, talk too much. We've used the analogy before of the physician is a lifeguard, and the trainer, the CrossFit affiliate, is a swim coach. I like that. I still like it.
I like that a lot.
When you need a lifeguard, you need a lifeguard. You go down and flatline. I need a doctor so bad, and burpees and progenics aren't the answer, right?
Right.
Whoops, they probably didn't like that, but it's not time for rock tape.
Right.
I mean, just bomb a bunch of sponsors. Huh?
No, we get it. Yeah. But no, I love that, and I love that right now, and the fact that you need that coach who you're seeing multiple times a week on a regular basis, who you have that relationship with, in order, and you have that community of support in order to be living this lifestyle that's going to be ridding you of chronic disease. It's not something you're going to fix in an office visit once or twice a year.
Julie, there's compelling evidence that kind of getting thrown our way to suggest that a social network is an essential element.
It's huge.
Yeah, that absent that, it doesn't happen.
And that alone, just the social network alone, has a positive impact on health and chronic disease. Let alone whether you're just sitting together or not even working out at all.
Someone just suggested to me, they didn't suggest, they told me that it was just discovered in some big study, private industry kind of thing, that personal network of 3 people who would help you with your release from the hospital was like a perfect predictor of readmission.
It makes sense.
And so, could you give me 3 or not? Yes or no? And that was a dividing line that across everything else said, they're coming back.
Wow.
Oh, that was interesting. Doesn't surprise me.
No.
It was sent my way because the person that had been privy to the data while it was still warm, just had been discovered, was saying that CrossFit solves all of those. Because sure, I mean, how many times do you have to go to a box before you have at least 3 people, right?
Absolutely. We've heard that story time and time again when something happens and immediately they've got all their friends in there supporting them in the hospital, because that's, those are the type of people you meet in the box.
For sure.
Wow. So something that you have been really spending a lot of effort on this past year is the soda industry. Why has that been such an important focus for you?
The toxicity of sugar. We now, I'm talking about high fructose corn syrup, table sugar, sucrose. We know the role that glucose plays in metabolism, and we've learned a whole lot about the role that fructose plays in metabolism. The smoking gun is there. The oxidation of the mitochondria and the production of uric acid and unregulated production of AMP and all that cascade of shit leading to diabetes and obesity. It's well understood, and study after study is showing us the toxicity. Now, there are a lot of things that are toxic that CrossFit isn't going on about. There are cartels moving heroin into this country, and people growing weed, and there are things that are certainly toxic and lifestyles that are toxic. But the second piece to this is the corruption, and we saw it in depth in the hydration problem, of which Gatorade and the American College of Sports Medicine played absolutely deplorable in super profitable roles. It took us a couple of years and a few $1 million to unscrew that mess, but and we were led there by academics. It was people out of a sports medicine department that told us, you got to take a look at this hydration thing. Pushed for a couple of years for us to take a close look at it, and what we saw was absolutely unbelievable. And since then, we've gone to other places and looked at other issues and things like exercise as medicine and the Global Energy Balance Network, and we find it again. We find the same players. We find the American Beverage Association and its constituent elements erecting these groups like the Life Sciences Institute that have inordinate sway over CDC and others. It's absolutely appalling. So the corruption, what soda money has done in the health sciences and fitness has to be remedied. So that's the second component. Then the third element is that whether it was their plan or not at the level of people making the poisonous bubbly stuff to fund legislation that tries to stop us from delivering our message or not, that money has gone that direction, and lots of it, and we caught them. We found just under 20 pieces of legislation that had in 7 or 8 states in yearly attempts. We'd been these asteroids have been shooting over our head while we were busy opening gyms all over the world and growing our games and doing what we were doing, building 13,000 islands from chronic disease. What the soda assholes and their proxies were doing were trying to make that revolution illegal, trying to make the training with the certification that we hold an aggravated misdemeanor, though it's, I think, in every sense superior to the one that was being supported by this failed legislation. One of these bills passed in D.C., and it caused us to look more closely at just the broader picture, at the world that's out there. And what we see is that in the chronic disease space, certainly from anything that might look like fitness, I find sodas, proxies, and CrossFit. That's about it. And we're in conflict. So that's it. That's where that comes from. Three solid reasons: the toxicity, the corruption of the health sciences, and funding assholes that are trying to squeeze us out of the marketplace. Excuse me.
And it's amazing to see all the data that is out there for really how toxic it is, and how, we talk about the similarity of cigarettes and smoking years ago, and how long it took for people to really realize the impact of that on your health. And I think with all the work you're doing, that hopefully this process is going to be much faster with the soda and with the sugar.
There's a wonderful anti-soda coalition, and it's people from UC San Francisco School of Medicine, and San Francisco Department of Health, and California Coalition for Public Health. But forget the name. But those people are great. It's a great group of people that are tackling this thing, that are aware of just what's going on. And a lot of the anti-soda coalition has as its aim to reduce consumption. Ironically, we've long had that in CrossFit. It was like meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar. And so we walked from it.
Yeah.
But the real value now will come in terms, I think, ahead of even the reduction in consumption, needs to be the removal of impediments to getting the word out to the public, just as to what the real nature of the problem is, what the threat is, and that's where the political element and comes in. We had in the hydration again, in a single instance, with one young man, with Zyrese Oliver, I can see the deadly impact of the American College of Sports Medicine and the science they altered in their hydration guidelines. I can see the damage to Zyrese Oliver from visits he made to the ER the week prior to his collapse, 2 weeks prior, I believe it was, to his collapse, where they said it was classical dehydration and told him to hyperhydrate. He presented at the hospital already hyponatremic, and they told him it was dehydration. And so he hyperhydrated, and when he collapsed, they propped him up and fed him fluids. And so his fellow teammates and coaches, they called first responders that gave him further hydration, and he got sent home, and he passed into unconsciousness, and during the life flight and subsequently admitted to the ER. In post-mortem, the pathologist observes 11 lines. They're not taking fluid out, they're putting it in. And then the pathologist says that he had classic signs of dehydration presenting weeks before the death, and just it's still not dawned on everyone that this kid was drowned.
Wow.
And all of that myth, there is no athletic dehydration. There's no such thing. It doesn't happen. There's no one that goes out for an athletic event and has a medical event that's like, oh my God, he's critically dehydrated. That doesn't happen. You'd have to wander off the trail and not be found for a week. It doesn't happen in the space of an athletic event. There's no prophylactic value. There's no etiology or an exertional cramping in hydration level. There's no protective value from heat injury in hydration. None at all. But we have a generation of people and it's believed from the emergency room, all the way down to the field, that's what you have to avoid. And what happened? We had another kid, this time a kid in Ranger School. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I didn't.
Yeah, another hyponatremia death.
Wow.
Yeah, they're happening still.
Wow.
Still. And we blame the people that profited from that misunderstanding. We've picked up a term that we call sponsored ignorance, and it's one thing to get it wrong. Some science is complicated, although I'll tell you things like, just between you and I, how you get how you could have any kind of clinical experience at all with feeding people and watching them, and have bought into the the low fat, high carb hysteria.
Yeah.
The high carb, low fat hysteria. To have bought into that with any kind of clinical experience is absolutely beyond me. But I'm not going to persecute someone for their lack of perceptive skills or being easily fooled. Look, the emperor had no clothing, and almost everyone in the audience was going along with it. I don't hate them all.
Yeah.
What I hate is the people in the audience that were paid to not see the clothing. Those are the ones I hate. And so that sponsored ignorance is damnable. And we've seen it too many places. We've seen it at the CDC. We've seen it at the NIH, USDA, FDA, just to name a few.
It's everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, it's wrong. It's wrong. And so from where I sit as leader of CrossFit, there have been some recent shifts in guidelines that are positive. I've seen some of these agencies rise up to taking maxes off of fat and putting them on sugar. Right?
Yeah.
We can all welcome that, but a lot of it's too late. So I recently go to the CDC website on chronic disease, and what do they want me to do? Cut out saturated fats and reduce salt. Like, damn you you're still, you won't tell the truth about this. And so we're gonna pick up the mantle where they refuse. It's there's a charter that's been abdicated clearly. Clearly, how do you, knowing what we know about the incidence of chronic disease, that it's going to take 75% of the people that fall? And by the way, that figure is holding globally. Just about every country is going asymptotic. It looks like to about 75% is a minimum. How do you address that issue and not say something about excessive carbohydrate in the diet? How? I used to think that you and I were just smarter than everyone else. That the people that should have known, and I don't think we were. We just weren't being paid to have it wrong.
Right. Well, I did want to ask first. We've seen in CrossFit Journal and recently about a CrossFit affiliate opening up in a hospital. I know you've talked about a CrossFit affiliate opening up in a medical school here soon. What is your perspective on that?
I don't know if there'd be an affiliate in a medical school, but we do have a medical school where we've been in long, fruitful talks about setting up a first-hand CrossFit experience for the medical faculty and some select patients.
Okay.
That is to put to the test my notion that the stimulus in terms of nutrition and exercise that optimizes the kinematic adaptation will control metabolics. And so that's, I'm going back east to work on that soon. That's really, of course, exciting to me. What was the other part of this? Oh, Doc in the Box. Doc in the Box. Yeah, we're going to put some physicians in a box. And what do I say about that? it's kind of a wonderful roll up your sleeves trick, you know. We'll have the Craftsman toolbox with all the goodies in it, right? And the screens and everything ready to go over there. And on the other side, a professional kitchen, and the rest of it looks like a CrossFit gym. And if something horrible should happen, we can get it stabilized until we can get that taken care of elsewhere. But the truth is that the stats on like post-MI exercise, you have an exercise-related cardiovascular complication once in every 86,000 hours of post-MI exercise. It's just not happening there. You know, it's funny. I've been in the gym day in and day out for decades. I've seen heart attacks in the classroom. I haven't done a lot of classroom time, not like you. I've seen heart attacks, at school. I've seen them in the grocery store. I don't even go to church, but I saw a heart attack in a church. I've never seen one in the gym. I've heard of people leaving the gym and going home and having a heart attack. I've known of people having heart attacks after and during surgery, but I haven't seen one in the gym. I would like to put a couple of docs in a box and very deliberately work with people that have been overlooked, that have chronic disease and haven't been given the opportunity to be treated as though this were a deficiency syndrome, so that outside of any irreversible damage that may have been done, that still their best hope is to fix the underlying cause, to reverse it. And we have that happening right now in the gyms.
Right.
I call them the double outlier. It's an oddity to go into a CrossFit gym weighing 400 pounds. And it's also an oddity to be a 400-pounder who becomes a 200-pounder. Both of those things are kind of unusual. So you're like the double outlier to present to a CrossFit gym, morbidly obese. And I just use obesity as an example. We both know the issue is really a total metabolic derangement, of which obesity is one symptom. Right. So you would probably rather pick A1C so that my soda friends didn't try and say, all you need to do is exercise more. But I would like to congregate, if you will, in a single box, a large number of these outliers from a given geographical region. So show to everyone that bring me the people that, Syndrome X. It's interesting that we've been much better at naming it than being honest about what's wrong. So whether it's Syndrome X or Metabolic Syndrome or whatever the current name for the thing is, we have an elegant solution, and it's not a miracle. It's just good science, and I'm ready to show the world that we got that. And so we got the right friends and the right tools and resources. We're looking at locations, and
amazing.
Everyone's kind of excited.
Very excited.
Yeah, I'll need help from you.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Good.
We're here. Amazing. Okay, well, I want to just close with a couple questions that I ask everyone on the podcast. The first one, I guess this is coming from you. I think this is a no-brainer, but 3 things that you do on a regular basis that have the biggest overall positive impact on your health. Like if you had to come up with the 3 most crucial things.
Enthusiasm for activity, carbohydrate restriction, and fasting. Yeah. I don't know where fasting sits.
Yeah.
But I'm increasingly led to believe that there's something significant going on.
Have you done
whole nother subject, but
yeah. Have you done much self-experimentation with fasting?
Yeah, over the years. I mean, it was 6 or 7 years ago I did a eat every other day thing.
Okay.
And that was really fun because, on the eat days, it was eat anything you wanted. And then you just wake up the following day, oh yeah, shit, and just put it out of your mind and didn't think about it. So those were really simple too.
Yeah.
So for simplicity, it was cool. The odd even plan.
Right.
But there's a lot going on in the literature right now on fasting.
There is, yeah.
And turns out our diet was a lot better than we may have thought it was. whole nother podcast.
Yes.
Have you gone to talk to Thomas Seyfried yet?
I have not. No, maybe I'll have to find him next.
Yeah. I have a gift for you in that regard.
Oh, okay.
You have his book?
No.
You'll leave here with it.
Okay, awesome. One thing that for you is the hardest to implement. One thing that would have a big impact on your health, but it's the hardest to implement.
Oh, it's got to be the food thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be for everyone.
Yeah. It's a common answer.
Yeah. Our the compulsion to elevate blood sugar is really remarkable.
It's a drug. Sugar is a drug.
No, clearly.
Very clearly. And what does a healthy life look like to you?
Balance in all things. You know, there's a psychosocial component, intellectual component. I mean, I'd build a CrossFit for the brain as well. You know, your life should be full of art and I think math and thinking.
What are some of the things that inspire you that you do with, to exercise that component?
I have the classic texts in physics and calculus that I had in school, and I pulled them down on a Kindle version recently.
Wow.
And thought, let's just try problem number 17, chapter 8. And then found that I couldn't do it, and that it was frustrating, and that 15 minutes later I figured it out and I could. So let me try another one. That's good stuff. It's really no different than being back in the gym. Yeah, that these same things happen in the brain.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I find that now like I mentioned earlier, I'm studying for my board exam, and I'm doing Tabata studying.
Yeah.
It's like everything you learn in the gym you can apply. It's very cool how life has that sort of balance.
I'm trying to relearn techniques of integration for the same reason that you would do a burpee, or I mean, there's easier ways to do exactly those problems than through those techniques. But
Well, I don't know if you remember the first time that we met, but it was in 2012, right after regionals in Columbus, and I had just finished competing. I made it to the games. I was super excited. I was probably more excited to meet you. And the first thing I told you was, thank you for changing my life. Because you truly did. And it's not, aside from the games, aside from competing, it's that you completely changed my understanding of health and fitness and what I wanted, what I wanted to do with my life. What is it like for you to know that you've changed the lives of hundreds of thousands, millions of people?
It's humbling. It's hard to take in. I don't have anything to compare it to. I'm proud of a lot of people. I have more blessings than anyone I've met, I think. To have a message or a notion, a concept, and for it to sit in your head and to be sure of it is a very different thing than to have people close to you that believe in you and share that conviction and work. All those people in the early days, everyone, Lauren, the original cast characters in Santa Cruz. It was a magical team, and it continues to be one to this day. I'm emotionally I'm lost. I'm awash in the realization of how incredibly blessed we all are, to rally together behind some simple truths and hold really no other litmus up for inclusion except do you get it or not, right?
Right.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty inclusive.
It is.
And so we know everybody. We know everybody.
It's amazing.
No matter what you want to do, or no matter where you go, it's CrossFitters that are going to step forward and say hi, and I know you see it.
Oh yeah. all the time.
So you end up with a lawyer that CrossFits and an accountant that CrossFits, and you buy
And that's how you find the very, very best one of all of them.
Yeah, isn't that interesting too?
Yes.
Yeah, I've had people, CrossFitters that offer professional services, try and lowball their trade for me, and I won't let them. I don't want someone to lose on a favor, right?
Right.
I know how that's how the guy makes his living. Thank you, hon.
Yes. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. I cannot wait to see what this movement does in the next 5, 10, 15 years from now.
We're at a crossroads. There's a tsunami of disease coming, and it's really interesting to speak to the CrossFitters that are working in the ERs. There's kind of right there at the beach, right? And nobody has a really good answer. I'm not so I'm not neither arrogant nor conceited enough to think that we're going to save everyone. That's not going to happen. The part we don't talk about with what it is that we offer is that it takes an enormous amount of willpower and self-control, and for a lot of people that's just in short supply. But we do provide the best fertilizer known for that, and that is community.
Yeah.
And so, that's the hope. I had a reporter recently say, just was very concerned about the downside of getting off the couch and hurting yourself, right? The risks. And she says, well, you have to admit that CrossFit isn't for everybody. And I said, okay, well, but it is for anybody.
Right.
And that is the truth. And so we look again at that dividing line. It's kind of like the things you can do something about and the things you can't. But what a wonderful thing it would be to think that you'd eliminated from the specter of possibilities about 75% of what's killing the current crop of folks sitting around watching TV today.
That's amazing.
Instead of listening to you.
Yeah. And it's, it's simple and anyone can do it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Anybody
can.
Yep.
Maybe not for everybody.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much.
This is fun.
Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. It really was a dream come true for me to sit down with Greg to talk about CrossFit and its impact on chronic disease and learn what some of his plans are for the future. My passion truly lies in using lifestyle to prevent and treat chronic disease, and like many of you, I've seen it time and time again in CrossFit affiliates. I'm so excited to see how we as a community will continue to do this on a large scale with the evolution of CrossFit over the next several years. To hear more from Greg on this topic, make sure you also check out his recent CrossFit Journal article titled Fitness, Luck, and Health. I linked to this article on my website, juliefoucher.com, so you can check it out there under the post for this podcast. To make sure you never miss an episode and to receive exclusive content from me, head to my website, juliefoucher.com, where you can subscribe to my email list. Also, don't forget to share your stories. If you or someone you know has used lifestyle to overcome a serious health challenge, please email me at info@juliefoucher.com. I'll choose some of these inspiring stories to share here on the podcast in future episodes. If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe and consider giving the podcast a 5-star rating on iTunes. Also, don't forget you can train with me by visiting beyondthewhiteboard.com/juliefoucher. I always love hearing your feedback, so please leave comments under this post on my website, juliefoucher.com, and share your thoughts on social media with the hashtag JFHealth. Thank you again so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time on Pursuing Health.